This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Jake, 30, and I just moved back to my hometown after years away. I left the city behind, hoping to reconnect with old friends. Everything felt familiar, but different. The streets were empty, and the buildings looked forgotten. I passed the old alleyway where we used to play, but it felt strange now. One night, after leaving the local bar, I was walking home. It was quiet, too quiet. The chill of the night air made me shiver. Then I heard it, like a whisper. "Jake," came a voice from the shadows of the alley. It sounded just like Tim, my old friend who went missing years ago. Confused, I hesitated. Maybe it was just my imagination. But hope wrapped around me, so I stepped closer to the alley, hoping to see him. I didn't see him, just darkness. I told myself I was losing it. I thought maybe I was just tired. I tried to forget it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I kept thinking about it all night. The next evening, I felt pulled back to that alley. As I approached, I heard Tim's voice again, clearer this time. "Jake," it said, almost real. But then it changed. "Help me." My heart raced. Was it really him? I wanted to help, but I didn't understand. I looked around, but there was no one, just dark shapes lurking. I felt a cold grip of fear starting to settle in. Over the next few nights, the voice came back. Each time it felt different. Sometimes his pleading seemed desperate. Other times it sounded angry, almost warning me. I stood at the alley's edge, sweat forming on my brow despite the cold. Shadows moved in the corners of my eyes. I wanted to run, but something kept pulling me in. If Tim was alive, or something like him, wasn't it my duty to find out? Laden through it, the nights blurred together. Each time I went, it felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I thought to myself, is this a ghost, a memory? I couldn't tell anymore. Then one night I stepped into the alley again. I heard it again. "Why did you leave me?" The voice was unmistakable. I turned, heart pounding. I wanted to see Tim. I wanted to understand. When I looked behind me, the alley was empty. No shadows, no figures. Just silence. I wanted to know what was happening to him. Why was he calling me? I felt hopeless but also determined. I had to find answers to help him. I took a deep breath and decided to venture in again. As I stepped inside, I noticed something different. The air felt heavy, thick. It made it hard to breathe. I could barely make out the walls. And then I heard it again, clearer than before, echoing in my mind. "Come closer, Jake." My heart raced. I took a step forward, feeling the pull of his voice. But suddenly it shifted, sounding dark and twisted. "Why didn't you find me?" The ground felt like it shook beneath me as shadows whirled around. I started to back away, but the darkness seemed to move closer, closing in. I realized I should have never come back. Just then, something cold grabbed my ankle.
My scream caught in my throat. I couldn't move, and I understood too late. Sometimes you shouldn't look for what's lost. It might find you instead. I woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing. The nightmare clung to me, a blend of chill and panic. I blinked, trying to shake off the feeling of Tim's voice wrapping around me like a vine. I was back in my room, but the shadows felt deeper than before. I couldn't brush it off as just a bad dream. I needed to know what was happening. The next day, I decided to visit the library. It was a small, dusky place, filled with the stories of our town, many of which I hadn't thought of in years. The heavy wooden door creaked as I entered. I made my way to the back, where I remembered they kept local history. I had to find out what had happened to Tim. As I pored over old newspaper articles, my fingers tracing the headlines about Tim's disappearance, a sense of dread washed over me. He went missing nearly 15 years ago, and in those articles I saw the same name pop up, George Miller. He was a neighbor, someone I faintly remembered as rough around the edges. People always whispered about him. Then I stumbled upon an article about strange happenings in our town, missing pets, flickering lights, even whispers in the night. It was all linked back to George. He was mentioned as a peculiar character, said to have connections to the supernatural. People claimed he tried to summon spirits, but most just called him a crazy old man. That's when I saw it, a photo of George standing outside his ramshackle house. A chill crept down my spine. Behind him, I could barely make it out, but there it was, an outline of someone who looked just like Tim. I squinted, feeling a knot grow tight in my stomach. Had George been involved with Tim's disappearance? I hurried home, my mind racing. I had to confront George, to ask him if he knew anything to help explain the voice. But as I headed towards his house, doubt seeped in. What if he was dangerous? Everything about him felt wrong. When I arrived, the sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the yard. I could hear the distant twitters of birds settling in for the night. Nervously, I walked up the crumbling path. I knocked on the door, my heart thumping hard against my ribs. Silence. Then I heard a shuffle inside. The door creaked open. George stood there, wild-eyed and disheveled. "What do you want?" he hissed. The smell of decay wafted out like a warning. "I need to talk to you," I stammered, my voice shaking. "About Tim." As soon as I said the name, I saw something flicker in George's eyes, a shadow of recognition. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "He's not what you think." Before I could respond, I heard it again, that voice, haunting and familiar, a whisper slithering through the air. "Help me." I froze. George's expression shifted from surprise to something darker. "No," he growled, stepping closer. "You need to leave now."
That's when I felt it, an icy hand wrapping around my throat from behind. I gasped, struggling to breathe. I remembered the shadows in the alley. They had come for me. I couldn't look back. I had to run, but where? The darkness was closing in fast. George's laughter echoed as I stumbled back into the fading light of day. Would I ever escape the night when my friend's voice returned? I dashed down the path, my feet pounding against the cracked concrete. The chill nipped at my skin, but I hardly felt it. All I could think about was the voice, broken and desperate, echoing in my mind. It begged for help, and I couldn't just run away. The weight of fear pushed me forward, but my legs felt heavy. I couldn't believe I'd confronted George. He had known something. The way his eyes had flashed with recognition rattled me. I needed answers. My thoughts twisted as I tried to decide what to do next. A sudden crash from behind made me pause. I turned back, squinting into the dusk. The door of George's house swung wide open, revealing only darkness. My heart raced again. Had he followed me? I peered into the shadows, but I saw nothing. Just the empty air that thickened around me like fog. I had to regroup. I couldn't just run away without a plan. I remembered the old stories from the library and the strange rumors about George's experiments with the supernatural. I couldn't shake the idea that he was linked to Tim's fate, but what would that mean for me? I stumbled backward, my mind racing to make sense of it all, when I heard it again. "Help me." The voice was more distinct now, and it filled me with both dread and determination. I spun around and bolted down the street. I knew I had to head to Tim's old house. I had never set foot there since he disappeared. The street lamps flickered ominously as I ran. As I approached his house, I hesitated. It felt wrong to invade this space, but something deep inside urged me on. The familiar white paint was peeling, the yard overgrown, and it was as if the house had been waiting for my return. I crossed the threshold, the door creaking open as if it had been made to welcome me back. Dust particles danced in the narrow beams of light filtering through the cracked windows. It felt eerie, almost like I had stepped back in time. My heart pounded as I took cautious steps inside. Then I heard it, a low whisper mingled with the sound of something shifting in the shadows. "Help me." A faint echo of Tim's voice. I rushed toward it, fear and hope warring in my chest. I reached the small living room where we used to play video games. The room felt cold, and I could see my breath as I called out, "Tim, where are you?" Silence followed, but the air thickened with anticipation. And then, as I turned to glance around, I noticed an object on the floor by the fireplace. It caught the dim light, a small, tattered diary. I picked it up, dusting off the cover. It was Tim's. The sight of it made my heart twinge with longing. As I opened it, the pages flipped to a random entry. My eyes scanned the text. "The shadows don't want me to leave." My breath caught. This was it. This was what Tim had been trying to tell me. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the back of the house. The walls vibrated as if alive. Panic clawed at my throat. I dropped the diary, heart racing. What was making that noise? I had to know, but I was scared. I took a step backward, torn between the diary and the growing dread in my gut. But then I heard it again, clearer this time. "Help me." Someone was in the house. Fear shot through me like ice water. I spun around, scanning every corner of the dark room. I couldn't afford to think too long. If Tim was in danger, I had to act quickly. "Tim!" I called again, my voice trembling. "If that's you, I'm coming!" My palms were sweaty as I moved toward the back of the house where the noise originated. It felt like a sticky web of apprehension had wrapped around me, but I wouldn't let it stop me. I squinted into the darkness. It felt oppressive, like the house itself was holding its breath. The back door was slightly ajar, creaking softly in response to a gust of wind. I hesitated for a second. What if whatever was making those noises wasn't Tim? What if I was walking into something worse? Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open further, the hinges screeching in protest. I stepped into the dim hallway that led to the kitchen. With each step, I felt the chill grip my spine. The shadows shifted, as if they were alive, watching me. "Show yourself!" I shouted, forcing my voice to steady. "I'm not afraid!" But deep down, I felt like a liar. I was terrified. What if this was all some twisted trick? A ghost imitating Tim's voice to lure me into a trap? A low chuckle echoed from the kitchen, rich and dark. I froze. That definitely wasn't Tim. My heart pounded as I inched closer, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I peeked around the corner into the kitchen. All I saw was emptiness, the faint glint of something metallic on the table. Then I heard it again, a whispering. "Help me, please." It trembled, as if the voice had been through something unimaginable. I couldn't tell if it was a plea or a taunt. Either way, I felt sick. I reached the kitchen and flicked the light switch. Nothing happened. My pulse quickened. In the shadows, the table loomed ahead, and that's when I saw it. A knife, covered in something dark. My stomach twisted. I couldn't breathe. "Tim," I croaked, hoping my voice would cut through the darkness. "Are you here? Please, I need you to answer." In that moment, a figure emerged from the shadows. My mind scrambled to identify what I was seeing. It looked like a silhouette of a boy, but it was twisted, almost distorted. The thing raised its head, and my heart dropped. Those eyes, I knew them, but this wasn't Tim. "What did you do to him?" I whispered, backing away. The figure smiled, but it wasn't friendly.
It stared at me, amusement dancing in its eyes, which only deepened my dread. "Let me show you," it replied, a voice that was a sickening mimicry of Tim's. I turned on my heel and ran. My heart raced as I stumbled back through the house, the echo of the distorted voice trailing behind me. I couldn't flip the light switch on the way out, but I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was escaping this nightmare. I broke through the front door and sprinted into the street, my lungs burning. I had to find help, but before I could grasp where to go, I stumbled on something in the grass. Another page from Tim's diary, torn and dirty. I grabbed it, feeling a jolt of hope and fear mixed together. I have to figure this out, I thought. But as I looked back at the house behind me, dimly lit by the flickering street lamp, I realized it was only just beginning. I clutched the torn page tightly as I raced down the street, my mind buzzing with questions. Was Tim really in danger? Where was he? And who or what was in that house? I couldn't shake the feeling that something dark had settled over our small town, and I was right in the middle of it. The street was eerily quiet, only the sound of my footsteps echoing off the pavement. My breath was heavy, the air thick with the smell of damp earth. I glanced back at the house, its shadowy silhouette looming in the distance. It felt like a monster watching me. I had to get away. I found a small patch of light from a nearby lamppost and stopped to catch my breath. The page fluttered in my hands. I looked down, trying to make out the messy handwriting. It was hard to focus. The words blurred as panic rose in my throat. "I think I saw something in the woods," it read. My heart skipped. I remembered the woods, the old treehouse. Tim and I had spent countless hours playing there as kids. But something wasn't right. I had heard stories about those woods, strange noises, missing pets, whispers in the dark. I tightened my grip on the page. I couldn't ignore it. I glanced around, half expecting someone to be watching me, and started running toward the edge of town where the trees loomed like giants. Each step pushed me deeper into the unknown. The path was narrow, the branches tangled above like skeletal fingers reaching for me. Moonlight barely broke through, casting long shadows that twisted on the ground. I felt the weight of the night pressing down, almost suffocating. "Tim," I shouted.
The sound swallowed by the trees. Would he hear me? Just the thought sent a chill racing through me. When I finally reached the clearing with the old treehouse, my breath caught. It looked even more decrepit than I remembered. The paint was chipped away, the wood warped. I peered inside, heart hammering in my chest. Darkness stared back. But there was something else. A light flickered faintly from inside. Hope mingled with fear. I climbed up the ladder, each creak echoing in the night.
I pushed the door open, and a sudden rush of cold air hit me. That's when I saw it, a locket lying on the floor. I recognized it immediately. It belonged to Tim. It must have fallen off when he was taken. I reached down to pick it up, but as my fingers brushed the cool metal, a shadow darted past the window, fast and menacing. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone. I turned just in time to see a figure standing at the foot of the treehouse, shrouded in darkness. It was watching me, and its presence sent a jolt of panic through my veins. I tried to back away, but slipped on the uneven floor. "Tim?" I asked, almost pleading. But the figure only laughed, a sound that sent icicles down my spine. It wasn't Tim. I could feel the dread settle in my gut, and in that moment, I realized I might have just opened Pandora's box. Before I could react, the figure lunged. I barely had time to process what was happening when the figure sprang at me. My instincts kicked in, and I scrambled backward, grasping the edge of the doorframe. I nearly lost my balance, teetering on the edge between the treehouse and the dark world below. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice cracking as I gestured wildly, hoping to ward off whatever threat stood before me. But the figure didn't pause. It moved with an unnatural speed, a blur of black and shadows. I turned and bolted, leaping out of the treehouse and landing awkwardly on the ground below. Pain shot up my leg as I hit the dirt, but I forced myself to run, pumping my legs as fast as I could while glancing back. The figure was climbing down in pursuit, fast and confident. My heart raced with every step I took toward the main path. I needed to get back to town, back to safety. The woods closed around me, the branches scratching at my arms and face as I pushed through. I could hear the figure crashing through the underbrush behind me, and the laughter echoed through the trees, a chilling sound that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, I stumbled and fell against a gnarled tree trunk. I caught my breath, ears straining to hear where the figure was. Silence hung in the air, thick like fog. I pressed my back against the rough bark, trying to steady my racing pulse. And then, just as I thought I had escaped, a voice called out, "Help! Help me!" It was Tim's voice. My heart surged with a mix of hope and confusion. Was this a trick? I barely moved, torn between instincts and desires. The voice sounded distant, but unmistakably familiar. I had to know if it was really him. "Tim, where are you?" I shouted back, my throat tight. "Over here," his voice replied, more urgent now. "Please, I need you." I took off in the direction of the voice, weaving through the trees, my panic subsiding momentarily. The yells grew louder, more frantic. "I'm coming!" But the laughter returned, ringing through the air like a malicious echo, taunting me. I stumbled into another clearing, and there it was, a faint glow in the distance. I could see a figure illuminated in the pale light, but something was off. It wasn't Tim. The figure stood there, mouth twisted into a grin, and I felt a wave of terror wash over me. The laughter bubbled up again, dark and twisted. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" It taunted, voice mocking. "You're too late." I backed away, breath hitching in my throat. My instincts screamed that I was heading into a trap, but I couldn't turn back. I had to find out what was happening to Tim. Then, just as I began to run again, the ground beneath me buckled, and I twisted my ankle. I crashed down hard, pain flaring through my leg. In the chaos, I barely caught the figure's movement as it darted closer. Panic shot through me. I had to get up. I had to fight. As I scrambled to my feet, the figure lunged again, but this time I was ready. I reached for the nearest branch on the ground and swung it with all my might. The impact connected, but instead of retreating, the figure only laughed louder, and in that moment I realized the nightmare was just beginning. I stood there, frozen in disbelief. The figure had taken my swing, yet it felt invigorated by the pain. It lunged, and I barely dodged, the rush of adrenaline pushing me to the side just in time. My ankle throbbed, and I stumbled again, bracing against another tree for support. "Tim!" I screamed again, hoping against hope that he could hear me, but that mocking laughter was all I got in reply, echoing through the shadows like a siren.
In a surge of determination, I pushed off the tree, forcing my legs to carry me deeper into the woods. There had to be a way out, a path that led me back to safety. The branches clawed at my skin, but I pressed on, driven by the thought of my friend. I thought I heard Tim's voice again, but it was overlapped by the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. They stalked me. Panic tightened in my chest. I needed to find him. I needed to. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement to my right caught my eye, and there he was, Tim. He stood at the edge of a clearing, just on the fringes of my view, his face pale and smeared with dirt. I called out, relief flooding me. "Tim, over here!" He turned, eyes wide with fear. "Help me, I'm stuck." I rushed toward him, ready to pull him free. My heart soared. How could I have doubted? This was my friend, and I was going to rescue him. But as I got close, my feet slowed, uncertainty creeping in again. The shadows twisted into shapes behind him, and that laughter swelled around us. "Come closer," Tim shouted, but his voice sounded off, hollow. It sent a chill down my spine. "No, stay where you are." I took a step back, eyes darting between Tim and the dark shapes coiling in the underbrush. "Please," his tone became desperate. "I need you." The tension tore at me. I could see now that he wasn't stuck. He was standing in front of a dark void, the earth behind him crumbling and writhing like it was alive. My mind raced.
"Tim, what happened to you?" I don't know," he stammered, panic lacing his words. But there was more behind his eyes, a glimmer that rooted my feet to the ground. Suddenly, the void pulsed, and something black rushed out. I barely had time to react as it lunged for Tim, ready to consume him. "Run!" I shouted, instinctively moving between him and the entity closing in. My heart pounded, fear coursing through my veins. Then, everything went dark. I was engulfed in shadows, the air thick with dread. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Panic clawed at my throat as I fumbled for Tim, my hands grasping wildly. "Tim, where are you?" I gasped, fear choking my voice. "I'm here, but we need to go. They're coming." Tim's voice broke through the void. It was filled with urgency and something else. Was it warning? The shadows shifted around us, sinister shapes moving in the blackness. I had to escape. I had to protect my friend. As I took a deep breath, trying to shake away the darkness, I felt a shudder beneath my feet, and in the distance, a growl rumbled, echoing through the chaos. I knew then that whatever was hunting us was ready to strike. The fight was just beginning, and I had no idea what I was up against. I stumbled through the darkness, my heart racing as I tried to make sense of my surroundings. The shadows pressed in tight, a living thing, swirling and pulling at me. I felt as if I was in a nightmare, too real to wake from, too frightening to face. "Tim!" I yelled again, shouting against the silence. "Where are you?" "Right here," his voice replied, but it echoed strangely, as if it was bouncing off the walls of a vast, unseen chasm. "We have to—" There was a sudden rush of wind, chilling and unnatural. I could feel something shifting in the darkness, like a breath from the depths of that void. I took a faltering step back. "Tim, what's happening?" I asked, desperation clawing at my throat. I strained to listen, but the growl I had heard earlier returned, deeper and angrier this time, reverberating through the shadows. "I don't know. It's trying to get us." Tim's voice broke. I could hear his fear, and it only made my own more pronounced. A terrifying thought flickered through my mind. What if he was right? What if we were already trapped, consumed by whatever dark force came creeping for us? "No," I shouted at the darkness. "I won't let it take us." I forced myself to move, stepping forward, searching blindly for Tim. My hands brushed against a rough surface, and instinctively I pressed against it. It felt like bark, surviving in this nightmare, grounding me in the chaos. I pushed ahead, hoping to reach him. "Stay together," I called out, trying to sound brave. "We can fight this. Just hold on." Then the shadows twisted and morphed, a shape emerging from the darkness that made my blood run cold. It was vague at first, quickly taking form, something not of this world.
It was an amalgamation of shadow and malice. A gaping maw dripped with darkness, and eyes like black voids fixed on me. I froze, caught in its gaze. "Tim!" I shouted, my breath coming in harsh gasps. The growling intensified, and the entity lunged, a rush of dark mist reaching for me. I felt a torrent of panic. I needed to think, needed to act. In a burst of clarity, I turned and focused on Tim's voice. "Run! Get away from it!" Instinctively, I threw my body toward him, praying to close that gap of darkness between us. Just as the figure surged out of the shadows, I felt a powerful force tugging at me, pulling me back, wrapping around my legs. "Tim!" I gasped, feeling my strength waning. "I can't!" "Take my hand!" he shouted. "Trust me!" My heart raced as I reached out, praying he was still there. I grasped his hand, and in that moment, I felt a surge of energy, something like hope igniting in the pit of my chest. But the darkness wasn't done. The growl came even closer, echoing
echoing in an angry snarl that shattered the air. Behind us, the shadows churned violently, revealing eyes that glimmered with hunger. With a fierce determination, we pulled together, dragging every ounce of strength from within. But then came a blinding flash, illuminating the void just long enough for me to see it. The horrifying truth. We weren't just fighting for our lives. We were on the edge of something far worse. And just like that, the tendrils of darkness coiled tighter, tugging at our very existence. I felt our resolve slipping. "Tim, what if it eats us?" I stammered, my mind racing as fear clawed at my throat again. "Then we fight," he shouted back, a fire igniting in his voice. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed forward, stepping into the unknown, every instinct screaming for survival. But just as I thought we might break free, shadows lunged once more, clubbing us in black. "Catch me!" Tim's voice rang out as he vanished into the darkness, and I felt my heart drop. "Tim!" I screamed, but the shadows clamped down around me, thick and suffocating, threatening to extinguish the last of the light. I was left alone, engulfed in terror, as the presence loomed closer, hungry for more. And in that moment, I realized the true extent of the nightmare we faced. The fight had only just begun. I stood shrouded in darkness, my pulse hammering in my ears. The gritty texture of bark beneath my fingers reminded me I was still anchored somewhere solid, but the thick veil around me twisted my senses. I could barely think, every ounce of energy focusing on Tim's last words. "Catch me! Tim!" My voice cracked, swallowed by the shadows. I felt sick, grappling with the idea that I might be alone. Suddenly, I sensed a shift in the air, a presence, something cold and lurking nearby. It was more than just a feeling. I could almost hear it, the faint rustle of something moving inside the darkness. Just a few feet away, a low growl vibrated against the chilling silence.
I gave in to panic, my instincts exploited as I pressed my back against the rough bark, desperately searching for a way out. Then, like a flickering candle, a faint glow broke through the oppressive blackness, dim but noticeable. I moved towards it, my footsteps careful and silent, my heart hoping against hope that it was Tim. The glow grew larger, illuminating twisted trees and snarled roots. That's when I saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows, and for a terrifying moment I thought it might be Tim. But as the light crept closer, I could tell it was too distorted, too wrong. Its skin glimmered like wet stone, and its eyes, bright yet void of warmth, seemed to drink in the very darkness surrounding it. "No, no, no," I whispered, horror coursing through me. An electric jolt ignited in my limbs, pushing me to flee. I turned, not bothering to check if it was still behind me. All that mattered was escape. The shadows shifted again, eager to ensnare me once more. I stumbled over twisted roots and snagging branches, grasping for balance. I had to push forward. The glow was my only guide. "Tim!" I called again. Each echoing syllable filled the air with desperate hope. Suddenly, the air changed, a rustling noise. I paused, panic sweeping across my face. What was it? Another entity? "Help!" A voice came from the darkness, muffled yet unmistakably Tim's. My heart raced. "Tim!" I yelled, relief flooding through me. "Where are you?" "Here!" he shouted back. The voice was clearer now, breaking through the oppressive silence. I took a shaky breath and charged toward the sound, every instinct driving me to find him. I broke through the wall of shadows, the glow expanding, revealing a narrow clearing surrounded by towering trees. There, at the far end, was Tim, his figure illuminated by the haunting light. He looked pale, eyes wide with fear, but alive. I ran to him, my heart swelling with relief. "I thought I lost you," I gasped, grabbing his arm, but he pulled away, caution etching his features. "Don't! It's still here," he warned, pointing past me. Before I could turn, the air thickened and a growl cut through me like a knife. The dark mass slithered into the clearing, taking form, and I felt that same icy grip around my legs. Together we were caught, locked in an unwilling embrace with something that craved to consume us. "Whatever you do, don't let go," Tim shouted, squeezing my hand as the shadows began to close in again. But my heart sank as I saw its maw stretch open, revealing rows of jagged teeth glimmering in the glow. My mind screamed at me to act, to find a way to escape. And deep down, I realized we were no longer just fleeing. We had to fight back before the darkness swallowed us whole. And then, everything went black. I gasped as the darkness consumed me completely, wrapping around me like a shroud. Instinctually, I fought against it, but the shadows felt alive, coiling around my body, pulling me downward into a suffocating void.
I screamed, the sound lost in the blackness that enveloped me. Suddenly, a bright light pierced through the darkness, blinding me momentarily. I shielded my eyes as the tendrils of shadow receded, revealing the clearing where I last saw Tim. Hope surged through me as I stood there, shaking, gasping for breath. "Tim," I called out, scanning the area for any sign of him. The clearing felt strange, somehow more vibrant than before, the trees standing tall under a silvery light, but no Tim. "Jake, over here!" A voice shattered through the stillness. I turned, the sound of Tim's voice twisting my heart into knots. He appeared from behind a tree, bruised but alive. My relief was palpable until I noticed the shadows creeping around his feet. "Stay away!" I shouted, raising my arms to defend him, but it was too late. The darkness lashed out, wrapping around Tim's legs as he fell to the ground, his eyes wide with terror. "Help me!" he cried, panic lacing his voice. The shadows dragged him back, inch by inch, as if the night itself was reclaiming its prize. "No!" I lunged forward, desperate to reach him. I grabbed his arms, pulling with every ounce of strength within me, but it was like trying to pull a boulder from quicksand. The cold tendrils snaked around my own wrists, pulling at me too. "Jake, please, don't let go." Tim's face was a mix of fear and desperation. I could see the clarity fading as the darkness seemed to feast on his energy. "I won't. Hold on." I gritted my teeth, picturing the strength of our friendship, the memories of laughter echoing between us. "You're going to be okay. Just trust me." With a roar of determination, I yanked backwards with all my might, the coldness numbing my fingers. The shadows writhed angrily around us, but I clung tighter to him. In that moment, something changed. The darkness hesitated, as if surprised by our defiance. "Together!" Tim shouted, his voice filled with newfound resolve. And as we cried out in unison, "Together!" a pulse of light erupted from within us, washing over the clearing. The tendrils of shadow recoiled, hissing their fury as we fused our strength. In that blinding burst of light, the shadows scattered, breaking free from their hold. Tim and I stumbled forward, crashing together in an embrace. We fell to the ground panting, the remnants of darkness slinking away. Are we free?" Tim breathed, looking around with disbelief. He looked wearier than I remembered, and yet a spark of hope flickered in his eyes. "I think so," I replied, glancing at the space where darkness had just been. The clearing felt alive, the once oppressive atmosphere now lighter, vibrant with the colors of dawn. But a lingering unease settled in me. Was this truly the end of it? I thought back to George's house, to the malevolent laughter that taunted us even now, somewhere lurking in shadows neither of us could see. "We should go. We need to tell someone," I said, pulling Tim to his feet.
"Yeah," he replied, glancing back one last time at the now calm clearing. "But what was that thing?" I hesitated, my heart heavy. "I don't know. Maybe it was something we brought with us, something darker that didn't want to let you go." I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. The truth was, I still didn't know what had happened, if it was tied to George's experiments, or if it had been something else entirely. As we walked back through the woods, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting the darkness to return. "You think it's really gone?" Tim asked, shivering slightly. "It has to be," I said, trying to convince myself. "But just in case, we need to find a way to make sure it can't come back. We need to talk to someone, a professional." It sounded like the right thing to say, but doubt gnawed at me, whispering the truth I couldn't voice aloud. When we finally reached the edge of the woods and stepped back into the light of day, I felt pain tugging at my thoughts. Everything felt different. The shadows seemed to linger just outside the reach of my vision, a reminder of horrors unrealized. "Jake," Tim said, his voice quiet but firm, "I promise to come back. But you have to promise something too." "What?" "Never forget what happened. Never go back to that darkness." I nodded, a lump forming in my throat, as the weight of our shared experience settled around us. As we walked back into town, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there. I had escaped, but the shadows still waited, eager to return. I had a feeling this was just a temporary reprieve, a conventional end without a true resolution. I moved to a different city after that. I guess I thought I could outrun the whispers in the dark. Sometimes I wonder if Tim is still in town, or if those ghosts still lurk. But mostly, I try not to think about it.